It's a rare moment when watching the start of a series that a single scene syncs up so perfectly and succinctly to sell the audience on the experience. And for me, I found that to be the first songwriting scene in this show. As the camera starts in close, not giving you a full grasp of the perspective, keeping the characters obscured, even in close-ups, to convey the nervousness and awkwardness of opening your heart up to someone you barely know. The soft piano and hums are the only backdrop as a guitar nervously slips into the fray. An awkward lyric delivered with passion that builds into a harmony. Through framing and shakiness in the beautifully rendered movements, the two grow closer, with confidence swelling in their voices and steadiness in their hands. This scene shows a more real than reality representation of how a song is born, wrought through raw emotion, rather than the actual how, resonating with viewers on a visceral level. All as the animation and art direction tell the story of two girls coming together. But this wasn't just two girls stumbling through the creation of a new song. This was the foundation of a band, but more importantly, a family. That was what went through my head when I first sat down to watch Carole and Tuesday, and was blown away. And with that said, no restraint on spoilers. An original property, Carole and Tuesday was churned out by the animation juggernaut Studio Bones for a spring 2019 release. If you haven't heard of them, I'd like to welcome you back to the waking world from your coma. Or for those who just happen to be peeking out from under their rocks, they've handled Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood's re-adaptation, My Hero Academia, Space Dandy, Escaflowne, motherfucking Mob Psycho, and about a billion other genre-defining works. That's quite the pedigree. Birthed from the mind of an absolute madman, Watanabe Shinichiro, who handled directing as well as series inception. A man who really doesn't need an introduction, but here I am trying to sell you on why when this man walks into an office with a show idea, he's given a blank check. The director of Space Dandy, Samurai Champloo, and an obscure little show probably nobody's ever heard of. Let me see if I'm getting this right, Cowboy fucking Bebop? And I don't doubt that this series will be regarded in that list down the line. His work is characterized by bleeding genres together for a well-rounded package, giving stories a ton of weight as the audience follows characters through highs and lows, or light and heavy moments. Even doing spins on tired genres like westerns by setting them in space. Backing him up in the director's seat is a longtime animation director for various shows like Psycho-Pass, Tokyo Tribe 2, Digikara Nyo, and Move to the Future, Izori Motonobu. I don't really know what else to say besides, it's nice to have an animator's perspective. With an original property such as this series composition and script are key. Handling that was Watanabe Aya. This is her first time working on an anime. Rest easy. She's an award-winning seasoned scriptwriter with a number of television dramas under her belt, such as Sonomachi no Kodomo and Carnation. And I have to say, that level of experience shows here. I'm most certainly interested in future projects of hers if she chooses to delve into the medium again. Hell, I may even have to dip into disgusting live action just to see. But a good script is nothing without a solid vocal cast backing it up. Our leads are Shima Bukuro Miyori and Ichinose Kana as Carole and Tuesday respectively. The two are relatively new actors without much in their portfolio. Kana's main roles to date have been Ichigo from Darling in the Fran XX. Hell if I know if I'm pronouncing that right, I don't actually give a shit. And Marlia from Fairy Gone. Not exactly inspiring confidence there with a block of wood like Marlia, but direction is what makes an actor shine, and I feel her performance as Tuesday evokes an emotional range that truly lets her flex her acting muscles. Miyori, on the other hand, has a few more lead roles to her name, such as Yuna Yuno Hana from Yugariso no Yuna-san, Gushiken Shuppei from Ongaku Shoujo, and Koihina Mangetsu from Granbelm. I see her acting potential quite a bit, as that list of characters shows her vocal range. which I think is pretty damn impressive in an industry where most seiyus only have 2 voices tops. Speaking of voices, we're looking at a show about music, so we have a ton of original songs, and the openings are both sung by the characters. The first song is a sweet little R&B light rock ditty called Kiss Me. I think it really sells the characters' listlessness at the start, until they have their chance, without explicitly being about the series. Probably because it's a love song. But still, an acoustic guitar backed by a piano, being the titular character's instruments, gives the series a warm, cozy feel at the start of every episode, showing not just the 2 girls in a walkthrough of their neighborhood, but how their music affects those around them, filling them with joy enough to dance and attract an audience. It captures the more underground and obscure feel of the early part of the series pretty well, I feel. The second one is a neat pop number that's brimming with energy. It's more powerful and confident, showcasing how the 2 have grown in the first half. Where the first few shows were rough, but with experience and fame, the 2 are more comfortable performing. The polished feel to the song also conveys that the 2 are essentially pro musicians at this point in the story, and the visuals are more like a music video than the opening to an anime. I might not like the second opening as much as the first, but both are a masterclass in telling a subtle story through something as mundane as the opening, which is usually there just to hype the audience up or showcase the characters and relationships. Getting into the story proper, we begin with a girl running away from home. She lives in a mansion, and judging by her luggage, she's pretty well off. She steals away aboard a train to arrive at a city where her luggage is promptly stolen. We cut away and meet another girl, waking up and rushing off to a part-time job. Things don't go well for her and she ends up getting fired, which seems to be a running theme with her life. So to take her mind off her troubles, she sits up on a bridge with a piano and begins to play a song. The first girl happens by and is enthralled by the music, but everyone else just seems to be ignoring her. The 2 are chased off by a cop, introducing the blonde girl as Tuesday and the woman of color as Carol, as they flee and quickly become friends. At Carol's house, they continue playing the song from the bridge, but with Tuesday accompanying her on guitar. This eventually blossoms into a full song and the 2 decide to start a band together. A bit later, they break into a music hall where a big DJ is going to have a show. They slip in during the setup and play the song they wrote, with one of the DJ's AI wranglers, Rody, recording them on his cell phone. The song goes over well when he posts it to social media. It reaches the ears of an old drunk named Gus, who happens to be a washed-up musician and manager. With the help of Rody, he tracks down the 2 girls and offers just that, to become their manager. They try a few things to get popular, make a music video, beg to get into an event, but eventually they land on a small bar to play for just a few people. During this time, Tuesday's family notices she's gone missing and her brother tracks her down. Hearing her play and seeing she's fine, he decides to let her go. After their show at the bar, Gus tells them he got them a real gig as a backup for a big-time musician at one of the largest music festivals on Mars. The guy's a drug addict and drunk, so it looks like they'll have to perform. When they go out on stage, they're quickly booed for not being the main attraction, but a favorite musician of theirs cheers them on. Their next try at getting famous is to go on a talent program, Mars Brightest. It's basically American Idol or whatever version of that show you prescribe to. As a B-plot to the show, a young model wishes to break into singing so she can have a longer-lasting career. Angela makes a deal with future Steve Jobs here named Tao. He's an AI expert who, using Angela as a base, makes an AI that can write hit songs for her, and all she has to do is perform them. This is essentially the norm of the world by this point, all major musicians using AI that just compile hit songs for them. So it's why they went to Tao, since he's the top AI guy in the entire world. Due to her massive head start already being famous and having money, she's automatically entered into Mars Brightest while Carol and Tuesday have to work their way in through some rough auditions. But since we still need an anime, they of course get in. The competition plays out with the 2 meeting a creepy fan who has a thing for Tuesday, and ends up hurting her when Tuesday refuses to quit her band or accept her romantic advances. Tuesday was keeping the whole thing from Carol, and that hurts. The two barely managed to squeeze out victory, while Angela seems to breeze through her rounds and surprise the judges while she's at it. With Tuesday keeping secrets from Carol and not taking the competition seriously, the two have a fight outside. Carol doesn't think Tuesday wants to win that badly, so things get shaky. Which is the opportune time for Tuesday's mom, a presidential candidate running on ethno-nationalistic policies, abducts Tuesday and takes her home. I know we're just blowing past this stuff and it doesn't seem important, but trust me, it is. After a bit, Carol realizes she just misses playing music with Tuesday and winning doesn't really matter to her. She just wants her friend back, so they break Tuesday out with Gus and Rhodey's help. They barely make it to set after Angela's declared the winner of the competition, but the two make a desperate plea to the judges. Not to let them compete, but to at least listen to their song. With that, the two blow the judges away with the first song they wrote, leading to a mid-season climax with both Angela and Carol and Tuesday getting a contract deal. Angela takes it and debuts with a song that immediately hits number 1 in the charts, but Gus refuses the contract on Carol and Tuesday's behalf. Since they wanted creative freedom, the two seek out a legendary producer to oversee their album, winning over a crazed-eyed old drunk named Toby, who drills them until they make a song to his liking. They start off kinda low in the charts, but steadily climb. Meanwhile, Carol meets a guy at the laundromat who helps her fend off some people claiming to be her parents, since she's an orphaned refugee from Earth. After a few encounters and talking with him, she finds out he's an ex-convict who's visiting from Earth to see if he can find his daughter. He knew Carol was her, but he didn't want money or anything, unlike all the posers who've been approaching her. He just wanted to see her with his own eyes, and vows to come back when he can. Tuesday's mom starts running on an anti-immigration platform for the presidency in earnest now, since that extreme rhetoric is resonating with voters. And basically, she's just following the AI running her campaign. This leads to a split with her son and a reporter snooping around investigating her campaign manager, the guy who owns the AI. As Carol and Tuesday grow in popularity, Tuesday is approached for an interview about her mother by the reporter, and she eventually agrees to talk. She develops a bit of a crush on him, but it turns out he's seeing someone. Angela's career is going great, but she has a stalker subplot that really doesn't go anywhere. But it turns out the shady billionaire funding Angela and Tao's music career is actually also funding Tuesday's mom's presidential campaign, and he wants Tao to turn over his super advanced AI to better predict people's emotions so she can win. He refuses and is arrested. Carol's old friend who was in the refugee camp with her turns out to be a famous rapper now. He performs at the same big concert the two were booed off stage at earlier in the series, but this time they're actually invited for their own slot. There's a terrorist attack blamed on Earth refugees right after Tuesday's mom makes some comments, and he makes a song dissing her mom because she wants to deport all the immigrants. And that leads to him getting deported because apparently his green card was no longer valid. So the girls finish their album. While a lot of this feels like it has little bearing on the actual story, it's impacting the characters quite a bit, shaping who they are as people and their music, inspiring for a hopeful message. With Tao arrested, he has an AI give Angela her last song, but she doesn't want to sing it at the Grammys because now she feels like she's forced to sing to make her mom happy. It was always her dream, after all, so her mother has a heart attack and ends up in the hospital, which drives Angela to do a shit ton of drugs. Carol and Tuesday also perform at the Grammys and write a song to sing with their favorite artist from earlier in the series who gave them the pep talk. The night after the Grammys, Angela shows up late, wins Best New Artist, and collapses on stage mid-song, due to the aforementioned drug use. During this time, other musicians are being arrested for speaking out against censorship, and Tuesday's brother approaches her to tell her about her mom's shady involvement. They gather everyone together and decide to make a song with all their connections to speak out against the current political climate, since they view music itself as dying out. So they're tasked to write a song that will unite Mars in the face of this adversity. Tao shows up to Angela after her mental and physical breakdown. After learning that her mom isn't her real mom and tells her both he and she are genetically engineered designer babies from some scientist, and he has to leave after leaking some info on the billionaire to go public about his shady dealings. But he'll come back for her one day, and encourages her to go sing her own song. Carol and Tuesday finish their song just in time for a ton of famous artists to show up. Tuesday's brother convinces their mom to fire the asshole running her campaign, and resigns from the race after learning he was behind the terrorist attacks. So the thing wraps up with the song going off without a hitch. That is until some armed guards storm the place, but they're stabbed by Gus and some volunteer security guards. So the thing finishes off with a happy ending, and everybody we saw throughout the series watching this highly successful broadcast, and teasing that Carol and Tuesday will continue. On in our minds. Go fuck yourself. While a lot of threads feel superfluous, this is less a show with a focused narrative, and more one about two girls dealing with life, and tangential things that affect their main goal. Things don't always loop around and connect to the main plotline, but I don't think it has to. Not always. Especially when it adds a lot to the world, and relationships within. So, let's talk about what I love about this show. And there's a lot. One of the strongest points in this series is character. Seeing Carol and Tuesday both form a friendship and band as they go from penniless nobodies struggling to get by to popular and successful musicians. Them overcoming adversity and having realistic complications in their relationship is a strong point. Carol getting caught up in the competition and wanting to win so they can be famous, but ultimately realizing their friendship means more to her than fame, is a defining moment for her, and one someone would expect in a band. Tuesday's slow realization that Carol's past as an immigrant and orphan, seeing her struggle and gain an appreciation for her, sets up a genuine bond for the two of them too. That makes them relatable to the audience, as the two don't really know what they're getting into, and still exude passion for their craft. Tuesday goes from a sheltered rich girl to a solid support for Carol, through her hardship with her friend being deported. She's forced to confront her family throughout the series, in an attempt to distance herself from that gilded cage, forging her own path as a musician, which is something her mother absolutely didn't want for her, as she was considered the family's lost cause. Her story is that of someone trying to find herself in a wide open world. Carol's journey from an upbeat loner struggling to find work to a rock musician has her looking back on the trouble she faced growing up, but rather than brooding in it, she looks back and sees how far she's come. She focuses on how that experience and the people she knew put her on the path she's on. While that would be played for pity in another show, here it's to demonstrate how strong Carol actually is, how her friendship with Tuesday changed her life. But most of all, I feel this show's main message is that of freedom and unity. What we feel makes us different, allows us to grow as a culture. I don't think I could address this show without bringing up the parallels to modern politics. And hey, there's a quick way to bury a video in downvotes. But this show touches on immigration, terrorism, censorship, government oppression, and identity as central themes. With Earth being a presumed shithole, Mars is where people go for a fresh start. People flooding a smaller planet for opportunity puts pressure on those living there already, who feel like the chances they had are being taken away from them. This rouses a strong anti-immigration sentiment that those people are coming to take what the citizens have. But on the flip side of that, we see that the people coming aren't monsters. They're coming to make it in their own way, mostly through the lens of music, as that's the focus of the series. Many of these people started off as nobodies, and built a career for themselves. With a backlash against them, protests, tension, and acts of terrorism on the rise, these people feel targeted for simply coming there, which in turn makes the government crack down on those voicing dissenting opinions, or using their platforms to spread defiance. What we end up with is a world looking a lot like our own, with increased nationalistic movements, calls for restriction on immigration, and concerns over cover-ups, censorship, and political prisoners. And who's puppeteering this whole mess? A barely featured billionaire who's been shown to finance and benefit from this unrest. God damn, I didn't expect a Japanese anime to hit so close to home. I've never seen a show so politically charged without being an overt political message. It's as though these modern issues are just used as a backdrop for the story itself to resonate its message. These aren't in your face. These are things the characters deal with, rather than telling the audience this is how they should be dealt with. And for that, I have some respect. As ultimately, this series isn't about immigration, censorship, government corruption, or any of that. It's about not losing the forest for the trees. That the people around you are just that. People. So, with that out of the way, let's talk a bit about what I didn't like as much. And that's probably how unfocused and slow the first half of this series can be. A few episodes really exist to pad out the experience, so you don't feel like Carole and Tuesday just became famous overnight. I get its purpose, but it still feels like padding. A lot of small moments and characters don't have much impact in the grand scheme of things, or much relevance at all. Like Angela's stalker plotline felt more like a relic from the writer's drama writing past, rather than something that impacted the story. Characters show up like this singer, and she's there for an episode. She's maybe mentioned once after, that's about it. I said not everything has to link back to the overarching plot, but some things stand out as particularly egregious in terms of fluff, for what could have been an otherwise streamlined experience. And if all I'm complaining about is that a story felt a little bloated with subplots that allowed me to spend more time with characters I enjoyed, I'd say that's a pretty minor complaint. Animation is beautiful. Bones absolutely knocked this show out of the park. I want to give a quick shout out to some of the staff behind it for bringing this setting and characters to life. Art director Kono Ryo, and character designers Saito Tsunenori and Kobayashi Eisaku. And they all did an amazing job at creating memorable and fantastic people to populate a creative and stunning world. My intro talked quite a bit about the animation, but that's just one scene. And thankfully, it's one scene of many that goes to great lengths to showcase emotion and movement beautifully. Absolutely amazing work on this series. In case you can't tell, I really like this show. It's one of the best anime I've seen in a while, and not just because it's fresh or popular at the moment. Honestly, with the weight given to its story, the presentation, and how much it stands out, this series, mixed with my enjoyment of course, is one I want in my collection. It's a series I see myself revisiting down the road for a relaxing watch, because it's just that damn good. Hey, you made it to the end of the video! Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and do all that other YouTube stuff because that really helps me out. And I'd like to give a special thanks to Phil Corona for making this video possible. Thanks for watching.